Hello YouTube. Sorry I'm a bit late to this, but I wanted to talk about the two new artifact sets that we got this patch. From what I have seen, it seems the community mostly thinks these artifacts are pretty underwhelming and that the domain isn't really worth farming for most players. And while that is probably mostly true, I think this domain actually has more value than what it is being given credit for. So let's go over these sets real quick and see why they can be useful. First, let's talk about the Hydro set. So this set provides Hydro damage bonus and attack percent up to 3 stacks. If fully stacked, overall, the set is providing 30% Hydro damage percent and 25% attack percent. This is a pretty hefty amount of stacks. The drawback is that the stacks only last 8 seconds, so it may be hard for some characters to maintain full uptime on them. The main characters that come to mind with this set's 4-piece are Child, Ayato, and Xingqiu. Child, the set seems to be designed around him, since the passive is so similar to his weapon, Polar Star. I haven't done any of my own Child math on this, because Child is a very hard character to calculate, but I can't see any reason why this wouldn't be his best set. Heart of Death, from my understanding, isn't actually very good on him, since the 4-piece doesn't buff his Burst or Riptide, so he often just uses 2-piece Hydro to attack or to attack to attack. So this set should be a direct upgrade, as he should be able to get 3 stacks of this quite easily. Depending on how long you have him on the field, he might have a few seconds where you only have 2 stacks and not 3, but this shouldn't be a big deal. Even at 2 stacks, you are getting 16% attack and 24% damage bonus, which should still be better than what any 2-piece option can provide. I do not know exactly how much better this set is for Child, since I don't have any of my own math for it, but I think it is quite clear, even without doing the math, that it is his best set. With Ayato, it is a bit more complicated. This is because in a lot of Ayato's teams, he is acting as a driver more than a DPS, and it becomes important to use 4-piece Thundering Fury on him so that he can drive for longer. However, let's say you are playing him in a team without Electro, so TF isn't an option anyway. Ayato should be able to get 3 stacks of this fairly easily. His burst is constantly hitting over a long duration, and he does skill damage on skill cast each time. His skill also only lasts 6 seconds, which is shorter than the 8-second duration that the stacks last. During your first rotation, however, you might not get all 3 stacks on his burst if you lead with it. If you don't lead with his burst, and let's say instead use it after your first skill combo, you'll miss out on 20% damage bonus for your first combo, which comes from Ayato's burst buff. However, from the second rotation and onwards, you should easily get all 3 stacks every time. I have done some math for Ayato, assuming 3 stacks of the set. These numbers are using Ayato on Primordial Jade Cutter, assuming he does his skill on the full N15 combo twice in the rotation. He is triple crowned, and this is his solo damage without any other team members. Things may change a bit depending on who exactly you pair him with. But as we can see, this set should be about 5% better than Heart of Death and Gladiators on Ayato. Do keep in mind that this is just solo personal damage. In the actual full team, the overall team DPS increase of using this set over the alternative will be smaller. Now with Xingqiu, the thing with this set is that he cannot get full uptime on 3 stacks. Since his skill has a 21-second cooldown, you will not be able to refresh with it. You could get the 3rd stack back up by swapping back to him and doing a charged attack, but you will likely not be able to do this unless you're playing a quick swap team that doesn't need anyone specific on field. However, you should still be able to get somewhere around 50% uptime on 3 stacks of this set on him, while being at 2 stacks for the remainder of the time. To simulate this, I calculated Xingqiu with 45 total range sword hits, with 22 hits at 3 stacks, 19 at 2, and 3 at 1. In these calcs, and most other calcs I'm going to show in this video, the assumption is triple crowns, and Xingqiu is using Favonia's sword, and this is also his solo damage with no other teammates factored in. From these calcs, if you can use an attack sense on Xingqiu, the Nymph set should actually be a slight upgrade over Emblem. However, if you have to use an ER sense, then it is slightly below Emblem, but it's like less than 1%, so it's fairly equivalent. So overall, I would say this set is worth using on Xingqiu if you don't have enough emblem pieces available for him. For example, on my account, I simply don't have enough emblem pieces to have a full set of it on more than 2 characters at a time most of the time. So if I had a good nymph set, then I'd be able to use it on him, and did not have to worry about sharing my emblem pieces between so many characters. Another thing is, if you are someone that uses Xingqiu as an on-field DPS, say paired with Candice so that his autos do hydro damage, then the nymph set should be even better in that scenario. But those are about all the characters I think this set's 4 pieces worth using on. However, the 2-piece hydro damage bonus might actually be pretty decent as well. It should give you another 2-piece option for the 3 characters I already went over, allowing them to run 2 hydro as a resin efficient option. But another character that this could also be a resin efficient option for is Yelan. In fact, for Yelan, in this domain you can also get 2-piece HP from the other set. This turns the domain into one where both the sets have a viable 2-piece bonus for Yelan, and you can also strong box the battle rolls for 2-piece Heart of Death, thus giving her 3 options from one domain. I have done the math for 2 hydro on Yelan compared to Fire Emblem. Based on my calculations, this should be about 7% behind Emblem if you use Yelan's skill once per rotation, and 5% if you use it twice. This is pretty noticeably behind, but remember that it is mainly meant to be a very resin efficient option, while also being able to free up your emblem pieces so you don't have to share a set with so many characters. Also, in teams where Yelan vaporizes her skill, the gap should be even lower, although I didn't take the time to include this in the calcs as well. But if you take a team like Chaos Sino, Yelan vaporizes her skill there for a pretty decent amount of front-loaded AoE damage. Having an extra 30% damage bonus on that could overall be more valuable to Emblem, even if it is lower overall DPS, especially if you have a C1 Yelan, in which case she gets to vaporize that skill twice. Now with the Hydro set covered, let's take a look at the HP set. The 4-piece provides skill and burst damage bonus when you take damage, which stacks up to a total of 50% for both. Due to the condition of having to constantly take damage, the set is really only viable on Dehya. It was clearly designed with her in mind. So, how good is it on her? Well, 20% HP and 50% damage bonus is quite a hefty amount of stats, so let's see. I have done some calcs for this. Unlike the other calcs I did so far, this one is actually with a full monopyro team setup of Dehya, Zhongling, Kazuha, Bennett, with all the buffs and everything accounted for. I included numbers for Dehya at C0, C1, C4, and C6. I included these different constellations because the set's value should go up at C1 and due to the HP being more valuable, then Emblem should lose value at C4 since Dehya's ER requirements become much lower, then even further so at C6 since her ER requirements become even lower again. And as we can see, that is reflected in these numbers. At C0, the set is only a slight increase over Emblem. At C1 it becomes a bit bigger of an increase, then at C4 and C6 there's a pretty huge increase. So it is actually an increase over Emblem at all constellation levels for Dehya. With that in mind, we also need to take a look at how well this set fares as a 2-piece option on some characters. We already talked about how it is an option on Yelan, although you would want to prioritize 2 Hydro over it. On a support Dehya, where she is being used exclusively for her skill, you could use 2-piece HP on her there to maximize how much damage she can mitigate, although you would likely just want to have her on 4 tenacity instead unless you have somebody else using it already like Faruzan. I have also heard that running 2-piece HP on Nilou is very good and can be her best set option, but I have no idea how to do Nilou math, nor do I really care to learn, so I can't speak on that. For quality Nilou information, I would recommend watching someone who knows what they are talking about with her, like Jamie or Kokomi Clan. So, that mainly leaves us with 3 other characters to consider this on. Those characters are Layla, Thoma, Zhongli. We will be using it on them to maximize their shields, as they scale with HP. Layla and Zhongli are able to use 4-piece tenacity, which you would want to prioritize, but in some teams, like with Wanderer and Zhao, you already have another reliable tenacity user anyway. And Zhongli's pillar can break or have unreliable range for hitting enemies, making him often not actually a reliable user of the set. So, I have done calcs for how strong these characters' shields are if we give them 2-piece HP. For these calcs, I assumed you have the tenacity buff coming from another teammate, but if you want to exclude that, you can just lower these numbers by 30%. What we can see from this math is that the extra 20% HP increases all of their shields by somewhere around 5%. This might not look super impressive since it's only amounting to like an extra 1 to 2000 HP on the shields. However, that could be the difference between your shield breaking or not. Layla does also get a bit more value out of her C4 with the extra HP, and all three of the characters have some HP scaling damage as well, so that's worth keeping in mind. But that's about all the characters I wanted to analyze. Overall, I would say this domain has pretty decent value for a pretty good amount of characters, while having very good value for a Dehya main, and I assume Chal domains as well. To recap, characters that I think can get good value out of this domain are Child, Ayato, Xingqiu, Yelan, Dehya, Nilou, Layla, Thoma, and Zhongli. One more thing worth mentioning is that with this domain is weirdly a Hydro and HP domain in the middle of the desert towards the end of Sumeru. I would have thought sets like this would be in Fontaine, which is just a few months away. As we know, Fontaine is Hydro, and Hydro is the HP element, so it is quite possible that these two sets will get more characters fit to use them in Fontaine, thus giving this domain some possible future value. Obviously, farming based on potential future value is likely not a smart idea, but it is still worth keeping in mind. But yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, please give a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and please feel free to leave a comment letting me know your thoughts below. Thanks, bye.